All right, let me apologize to everybody. I had a little bit of technical difficulty there. The stream actually was actually like it actually was like dubbed, so I had to restart it. So I was hearing like voices in the background, so I had to shut it down and then restart. So I do apologize to everybody that signed in. So we are back. We are back. We are back. So hopefully everybody knows me over here and will come over to this side, and we can go from here because I'm not sure exactly what happened there. All right, so tonight we got a fun packed live for y'all. Hopefully we can make up for our technical difficulties with a decent live tonight. I actually am going to talk a bit about Zepbound. I'm going to talk about Retatrutide, and I'm going to talk about some other peptides because it's getting a little bit dangerous out here in these streets, in these YouTube streets. So we're going to get into it tonight. So hopefully y'all ready for it, because that's what we're talking about. We're talking about, safety, what actually the mechanisms of the drug is, and, how they work and why you probably should or shouldn't stack, okay? But, yeah, we had some technical difficulties, but we are back, and I have an opportunity to actually record horizontal tonight because of the technical difficulties. So that's the way we're going to go. We're going to go with it. So we're going to get into it. So the first thing we're going to do is, though, we're going to jump into Zepbound and what it actually is, what the effects are, and then we'll go right on into Retatrutide, and then end off with talking about why it is that you might not want to stack the two, and then also talk about did your YouTube hemorrhage? That's what it seemed like. I don't know. I don't know what that was about. I started hearing feedback. I was hearing myself because it started two separate Darian. It started two separate recordings. So I was hearing myself back. So I actually just went out and I started another one. Unfortunately, so I don't know. I don't know why that occurred, but it did. So here we are though. So we're gonna get right into it in a minute. We'll let a few more people come in, and then we'll jump right into our topics tonight. So since I'm on another channel, I'll let a few people filter in. Hopefully y'all having a good night. Hopefully you guys that are here, your football team, if you're into it, is still alive in the playoffs, because mine's been out since been gone since last week. So that's where we at with that. So we just gonna like I said, go with the flow tonight and jump into the basics, talking about Zepbound, Retatrutide, and some other peptides, because Darren been trying to get me to steak and potato. Yeah, that was good. That steak and potato was real good, man. It was really, really, really good. Really good. So, did you see the new food chart, Darian? Because they got a new food chart. I posted that on my page too, and steak was right up at the top. Well, I should say red meat. Red meat was right up at the top. So I think I'm doing the right thing. The new daily food diagram, I should say, right up at the top. Who produced? Who produced? You talking about the steak? That was this night. That one was Outback. That was Outback we was at. But I've been to almost every steakhouse in the United States, I feel like. So top one is probably Texas Roadhouse. That probably is my top. That was who produced the chart? The chart was produced by the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA. Was it the FDA or was it trying to think, was it FDA? It might have been FDA, but then again, it might not have been. So I posted it on my page, but the new administration, I'll just go with that. They're the ones who actually produced it. So, but I'm definitely in agreement with it because they actually put the carbs down at the bottom. Because forever, in a day they've been having the carbs at the top. The carbs was like or not so much at the top. It was on the bottom, but it said we should get 6 to 11 servings of it. So we kind of know that that's not true because a lot of that is what leads to that insulin resistance. And it's really, carbs are primarily derived. Well, processed foods are primarily derived of, those dangerous carbs. So we want to stay away from that. Yep. All right, so let's get right into our topic tonight. So let's talk about Zepbound, right? What is Zepbound? Now, the reason why I felt comfortable with going with this topic tonight is because I feel like a lot of people take Zepbound and don't really know what it is, right? And what's involved. Now, I'm going to read the actual definition of what it is, right, and what's in it. But before I do that, I just want to talk about the basic knowledge, right? So the basic knowledge of what it is, right? It's a dual agonist, right? And it consists of GLP-1 and GIP, right? Now, the GIP is the dominant factor in that particular peptide, right? It's the dominant factor. Now, what I mean by that is it's 5 times more receptor agonist GIP than it is GLP, right? Because Ozempic or Wegovy is 100%, GLP. Now, when I'm saying that, I need to break it down further. I'm gonna put it in layman's term, right? So it's not a this or that. What I mean by that is it actually, hey, Jen, how are you? Good to see you tonight. You're not working tonight, Jen, or you on your way? Generally, I know you're usually driving or on your way to work this time of night. So, I'm kind of, used to you, say I'm driving on in. So if you are, drive safe. But yeah, so technically, I think people get it confused, right? When they talk about what it consists of, because realistically, we're talking about ingredients, right? Ingredients within these GLP-1s. So, hey there, Dr. Jen. It's the pharmacist night talk and all the nerdy medicine talk. Yeah. That's that. Oh, you off this week? Oh, look at you. Okay, Jen. That's what's up. You got a little vacation going on there. That's good. But basically, we're talking about Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, Retatrutide, right? Now, obviously, Zepbound is Mounjaro also, right? The diabetic version of it is going to be Mounjaro, right? The Zepbound is the weight loss portion of it, right? So, or the name of the weight loss portion, right? So what we want to do is define these things, because what's happening is people have decided to stack these medications, right? And you don't want to be stacking pretty much the same ingredient on top of another, right? On one another, and not actually letting your doctor know, because, you actually are, flooding your system, with something that makes no sense, right? So when we talk about these drugs and they say 5 times, 10 times, what we're talking about is the effect, right? The effect on the particular receptor, right? So the receptor, right, that the Ozempic Wegovy affects is 100% GLP, right? Of one thing. That's what we all know to be that crushes the food cravings that people had. That's the main one that people always talk about, right? But enter tirzepatide, Wegovy, Mounjaro, right? The two names that differentiate between diabetes and weight when it's used for weight loss. That one introduced GIP, right? Now that GIP is 5 times the GIP, has 5 times the effect that the Wegovy has, Wegovy slash Ozempic has on their receptors, right? The glucagon-like peptide was dominant. Glucagon-like peptide 1 was dominant in that particular therapy, the Ozempic Wegovy, right? Netting 15% weight loss on the highest end. Then you have the glucagon-like peptide 1 with the introduction of GIP and Zepbound that is 5 times more GIP. Now, I want to keep this in, hey, Vanity, how you doing? Now, what I want to do is I want to keep it in layman's terms, right? So layman's term is not to be, like Darren said, scientific speak. I don't want to be so scientific because I think that's the problem, right? We need to talk like we talking to each other sitting around the living room, right? How I break it down to my wife, how I break it down to, maybe friends of mine. So, okay, cool, Vanity. Thanks for stopping through. Appreciate, the support. Catch it on the replay. But yeah, so what we want to do is we want to actually break it down into like real layman's terms, right? We don't want to, be so scientific that people don't understand. That's what we don't want to do. So that's why when you say these long definitions, people get confused. Now I'm going to read the definition, but then I'm, also going to talk about it in layman's terms. So actually I'm going to do it in reverse. I'm going to talk about it in layman's terms, then I'll pull it up and I'll tell you what those definitions are, then maybe you'll understand it better. So GLP is like 100% appetite suppressant. The Wegovy Zepbound. Then when you introduce netting 14.7% weight loss, in the trials to be specific, in 68 weeks. Now, when you go to what we call tirzepatide, Mounjaro, or Wegovy, right? All the same thing, but labeled for different usage. That one introduced the GIP, right? So when it introduced the GIP, what happened is fat oxidation was something that actually was introduced to the public, It has 5 times more the effect on those particular GIP receptors already existing in the body. So what that fat oxidation did was actually cause the brain to be a lot slower to actually store the fat, right? I like how they're changing the blanket GLPs one to nutrition stimulated hormones. Yeah, but I think different things are necessary. So I'll read the chat later, but I want to get through the definition. So basically, get through the layman's terms and the definitions first. So basically what happens is they introduce the GIP, and the GIP, what it does is, because people was like, well, we didn't know that it actually, hey, Bound to Me, how you doing, brother? Good to see you tonight. So what happened is people actually don't understand or know that Zepbound is primarily a GIP, right? So with it being the GIP, what it is it's allowing fat oxidation, right? So what that fat oxidation is doing is allowing you to burn fat faster and not allowing the body to store it. That's what GIP primarily does. That's the primary mechanism that's affecting your metabolism, right? It affects the metabolism. So with it affecting metabolism and your insulin, right? It's controlling that insulin, which is the most important thing, right? It did a different thing, and that's how we got to that 20%. Because that dual agonist, right? That dual agonist is what I feel like the thing is that allowed us to actually, see some synergy, right? Then you got retatrutide entering the room, right? Now, what we remember is that you got 15% weight loss with Ozempic, Wegovy, semaglutide, 20% weight loss with tirzepatide / Mounjaro / Zepbound, right? And one was a single agonist, one was a dual agonist, right? One was just simply GLP, one was GLP and GIP, right? So now into retatrutide, right? And again, we're just doing layman's term. I'll go back and read the definition. But I think layman's term is very important because people get lost in the actual specific definition and don't understand the mechanism, right? So the mechanism in which, let's talk about retatrutide first in layman's term. So retatrutide enters with, working on 3 hormones, right? So with that working on 3 hormones, the GLP-1, the GIP, and now glucagon, right? Which actually increases that energy expenditure even more, right? because that glucagon is what caused that to be called a triple agonist. So you got mono, right? Mono agonist, dual agonist, and triple agonist, right? Now, the one dominant thing in the latter, which was the dual agonist and the triple agonist, is GIP. GIP is existent, right, in both tirzepatide and Retta, right? And I'm using the actual source name, Retta, and because we don't have a name for Retta yet, it's just like along the lines of semaglutide, tirzepatide, retatrutide, right? So that's why I'm not using brand like Mounjaro, Zepbound. I'm just saying its source, right? Retatrutide actually is a triple agonist, and with it being a triple agonist, GLP, GIP, glucagon, it caused, at least in the Triumph trials, the most weight loss to date at just about 29%, right? Which is pretty much rivaling bariatric surgery, right? Which is right around 30%. The average is like right in the middle, right? That triple agonist. Now, it's very important to say, out of the three things that I just explained, that the latest two, tirzepatide and retatrutide, are both GIP dominant, right? And what I mean by that is, to make it make sense, the effects that it has on the body, right, is kind of one and the same, because retatrutide and tirzepatide are heavily GIP. Now, to be specific, right, because I want to be specific, the tirzepatide has 5 times the effect on the body's GIP, right? Retatrutide has about 9 times the effect. So you're essentially almost doubling the amount of GIP in the retatrutide. So this is why, right, which our later conversation is coming, you don't necessarily want to stack Retta and Terz, because all you're doing is going GIP crazy. Now, obviously, you're not going GIP crazy, but I told you I'm going to talk to you like we on the couch, right? So what I mean by that is I want to say you're tripling down on a massive dose of GIP. This is why it's very important to actually speak to your doctor about it, and don't not tell your doctor, because he can tell you this if he actually studies the peptides, right? You getting GIP on top of GIP, and remember how these drugs work is they have an effect on receptors, right? It's not like we saying this drug contains, because we do say that, but what we should be saying is this drug's effect, right? Not what it contains, but the effect. The effect on the GIP is 5 times greater than what's naturally occurring when you use what is called tirzepatide. The effects on the GIP is 9 times greater than what's naturally occurring when you use retatrutide, right? So when you mix Zepbound and retatrutide, you just have massive GIP stimulation, right? So this is why you don't necessarily want to stack the two. It really doesn't make sense, because what you generally would just do is most likely go up on your tirzepatide if you're not at the highest dose, and you would get that GIP stimulation. Because what a lot of people that are using gray market peptides will tell you is, well, I'm just literally using the micro dose or small dose. I'm not using a big dose. So when you actually put the mid-range dose of tirzepatide with the small range dose of retatrutide, what you could have done was just go up in your tirzepatide safely, right? Because it's already FDA approved, especially if you haven't got to the highest dose. If you haven't got to the highest dose, you are not maximizing your return on investment before using another stack. And now we know different stacks are for different things, right? But in the case of tirzepatide, retatrutide, created by the same maker, right? They heavily are quadrupling down on the GIP factor, right? Because the glucagon effect from retatrutide, at least in the studies, I don't believe we had exact percentage yet, because I looked that up, but it's not of a massive amount. I think that is just it's just synergistic You know, when you add that to the GIP that's already existent in the Retta, because it actually, the Retta that's utilized the GIP that's utilized in the Retta is, again, like I said, to be specific, because I like to be specific, 8.9 times stronger, right, than your naturally occurring GIP hormone, right? The hormone in the tirzepatide is 5 times stronger. So now you understand, moving to Retta, you actually are stimulating that receptor 9 times more than normal or than usual, right? So with that being said, you definitely don't want to be stacking them too, because it just doesn't make sense. Now you're gonna get a result, right? But you're also living dangerously, and you don't have to. You know, what you could literally simply do is go up on the tirzepatide, you know, and get probably most likely the same result if you're doing all of the things, right? Like I said, you know, doing the resistance training and lifestyle, you know, along with taking a higher dose of tirzepatide, you probably could get the same result that you're getting by stacking two things, you know, in a dangerous manner, right? Because you know, and so that's why it's very important to actually, if you're going to actually put something inside your body, you know, do subcutaneous fat like that, or you know, any type of injection, take the time to really, really study what it is before you go and add something else. Because once you learn that, hey Tamika, because once you learn that, you probably would not be so quick to stack. And I'm not saying that everyone's quick to stack, but I'm saying those that are would actually probably think twice before doing so, because it really just don't make any sense when you actually are in the parameters that I'm speaking about. Mid-range tirzepatide, low-dose retatrutide, because you're really stacking the same thing. It's GIP on top of GIP. Now, yes, it did also include now the glucagon factor, which is a big factor, which makes it synergistic, and that's what you're looking forward to. But I really think you could get the results you're getting if you are microdosing, right? Because again, I'm putting it in parameters that those, you know, a lot of people say that they're utilizing it. They're saying that they're utilizing a micro dose. So that's why it's important for me to go back to the beginning of what I'm saying. If you're using a micro dose or low dose retatrutide with a mid dose of tirzepatide, right, you just might as well have went on up on the tirzepatide, which is already considered safe and FDA approved, versus stacking two drugs together that don't really make sense to do, because you're just flooding your system with more GIP, that you probably don't need, right? So, you know, those you know, are the things that you don't want to do with those three. But I like to talk about, like I said, about these things in layman's term and not get so definitive with mechanisms, because people get lost in the sauce if you're not like truly into science, right? Because I can sit here and read off, you know, exactly what the word is, this word is, you know, but to say GLP, GIP, glucagon, most people know that now. So it's easier to go that route, you know. So I hope that helps some people that are thinking about stacking Retta and Zepbound or tirzepatide, because you literally just stacking GIP on top of GIP, and you probably will see a result, because it's the same result you probably would have seen if you just would have titrated up, you know, to a higher dose, probably 12.5. Because if you're on, you know, a 5 or a 7.5, and then you know, stacking that with a 4 milligram of a Retta, or, you know, or what have you, you know, you probably just getting what you would get out of 12.5 milligrams of a tirzepatide. So you might as well have just went on and titrated on up and did it safely, you know. So it's always important to talk to your doctor, right? So, you know, I'm not your physician. I'm not a physician, and I simply manage a pharmacy, and I'm just telling you what it is, you know, that I know from my own study in the trials and just, you know, my own journey. You know, for those that don't know, I'm Jesus one of one. I probably should have said that in the beginning. If you're new here, welcome. I think I just got regulars in the chat right now, but if you do happen to stop by in the middle of this, my name is Jesus 101, and we talk about all things GLP. You know, with our obesity warriors over here, because our whole mission on here is to actually help people to get out of Jen says obesity, 17.5 of TERS. they coming out with that just for you, Jen, just for you. And then talking about all that, I haven't talked about my 12.5 titration. I am gonna get back to the peps in a minute because I'll go through. I know Darren wanted to talk about. I think cagrilintide and probably survodutide, mazidutide. Like there's a list of some other ones, in there too. That I can probably pretty much read the definitions and stuff all for. A lot of that stuff is in trials, so they don't have a lot of information. But I will say, you definitely don't want to be using the gray market. And you know what? Before I go into my thing, I'm going to say what I feel is the reason you should take precaution when it is that you actually utilizing gray market is probably three reasons, right? Number one, the first caution is bad molecule, right? So, and what I mean by that is you can get a bad molecule from a supplier, right? You don't want that, you don't want that because that is absolutely, not going to end well. You putting bad molecules. The other one could be bad protocols, right? Now the bad protocols is like that particular supplier is either not storing it right? So you're getting product that's probably that could be contaminated, right? And they don't have the right practices, so your drug might not be safe in their hands because you're not sure of what that third and fourth party is mixing, in that. And then finally, you're probably not sharing, this with a medical professional, so you might be actually utilizing them wrong. So those are some of the things that you're not gonna probably talk about on the gray market. But again, remember, you're injecting yourself with something, and obviously we want to get the best results. But the thing that I want to get across to people that actually are doing this is safety should be number one, right? And you probably can actually get said or desired result by just speaking to your doctor and going up on the drug that you're already on, if you're not on the highest dose, right? Because a lot of times you hear this isn't people that's on the highest dose that's doing that. And it's so rampant now with people that's stacking and utilizing peptides. People are going to use peptides regardless, right? We know that. But we just definitely want them to get it from the safest person, and we don't want them to use it in a way that just doesn't make sense, right? So the only way you can know whether it makes sense or not is to not be stacking like peptides. You know what I mean? Like there's literally, in my opinion, right now, no real reason to stack a microdose of Retta with tirzepatide. It just doesn't make any sense because you're pretty much doing GIP overload. GIP overload is what it is. Like it's a whole bunch of GIP, right? And if you're talking about fat burning, right? I just said to you that the GIP actually makes it harder for the body to store fat, right? So in a sense, and it actually kicks up that metabolism, right? Your insulin control, which actually helps you to actually burn fat. It helps to burn, which actually kind of dissipates the inflammation, right? Inflammation gets dissipated, right? You get that the less inflammation, that decreases all that swelling that we have that's not necessarily fat, but that fluid, and you don't store fat. That's what fat oxidation is, right? It does not allow you to store fat. So in essence, it helps to maintain and not put on, more fat, maintain and get rid of fat. So yes, it is a thing, glucagon actually just accelerates, the whole thing, right? By actually increasing energy expenditure. That's pretty much what it's doing. So I get the overzealousness of wanting to, try it. But I would say for right now, if you can wait, just wait for the FDA approved version, switch over to Retta and then go through the process. You know what I mean? And if that's going to be a better drug. But if you can't get it, just titrate up, to where you feel like you need to go, right? Now, what I was talking about was my experience so far on 12.5. So far, so good. I haven't had any. Only thing I can say is I have been a lot more sleepy. It has definitely made me feel like I can nap. You know what I mean? Like it has done that, and I have had satiety, that food noise that I was having, I don't, because the food noise did pick up. And that was my primary thing. It wasn't necessarily about weight. It was about the food noise. And I didn't want to gain any weight, because while I got back to being more active, I'm still not 100%, because after the surgery and with my other ankle, so with my feet and ankle issues, it still prohibits me from doing 100% of what it is that I want to do because we're still in the healing phase, so to speak. So therefore, I actually wanted to make sure that I was actually on, enough of because I was having food noise, enough of the medication to not have to worry about that food noise that I was having, and it did help. So and like I said, I don't plan on titrating to the 15 unless I have to, but I will because that's what it's for, right? That's what the medication is for, right? But yeah, so far so good. I just completed 1 month on my my 12.5 of Zepbound. So that was the first month, and so far so good. Like I said, no side. I mean, well, I guess once you get this high, it's not no real, realistic side effects. Yeah, nothing more than, like I said, I feel a little more, a little more sleepy. So I can only imagine, like Twan was saying, if you take the 15, that probably really like knocks you down. So what I take is the 1-a-day men's Pro Edge, because that 1-a-day Pro Edge really, gives you that boost because it has a lot of the B vitamins in it, So, yep. So there's that. But back to the peptides. Yeah. So the thing is, like I said, I'm going to actually just read the takeaways for Zepbound. Zepbound tirzepatide is a prescription drug that's used for weight loss and obstructive sleep apnea in certain adults. It works by reducing appetite and slow digestion, which makes you consume fewer calories. It's used with a reduced calorie diet and increases exercise. Common side effects of Zepbound include nausea, diarrhea, constipation. Serious side effects, though rare, can include gallbladder problems, pancreatitis, and the risk of thyroid cancer. Zepbound comes as a liquid solution inside pre-filled injection pens. You'll inject the drug under the skin once per week. The dose is gradually increased based on doctor's recommendation. So those are the basic takeaways, right, from Zepbound. Let's go more into the clinical. So we can do that. All right, so we got Healthline. I think we're going to use Healthline. All right, y'all, so we definitely wanted to just jump in to look at the actual ingredients, and then we'll jump over to a different peptide. All right, so ingredients. Well, we're going to talk about ingredients now. So basically, ingredients, tirzepatide is the active ingredient, right? But there are some inactive ingredients, right? Because we want to know all of it. So there is in tirzepatide, along with tirzepatide, there's sodium chloride, there's glycerin, there's alcohol, phenol, sodium phosphate, dibostic hyphodriate, hydrochloric acid, sodium hydroxide, and water for injection. So these things are used for stability, preservation, pH adjustment, and to make the injection isotonic. These active ingredients ensure the drug is safe, stable, and comfortable to inject. There's always good to read up on every little thing, right? So the active ingredient, like I said, is tirzepatide. It's a synthetic peptide that mimics natural hormones, GIP and GLP, which I said in layman's term, to help control blood sugar and aid in weight loss. The inactive ingredients that I just mentioned, I started with sodium chloride. So sodium chloride is it makes the solution isotonic, right? Similar salt concentrations to your body to prevent stinging. So the sodium chloride is to prevent stinging. Glycerin helps to maintain the drug's tonicity and stability. right? Not tox, tonicity and stability. The sodium phosphate, heptahydrate, it's a buffer to keep the pH stable. Benzoyl alcohol is a preservative, and so is phenol. It's another preservative. The hydrochloric acid solution in sodium hydrochloric solution is used to adjust the pH levels. The water for injection is the vehicle or carrier of the active ingredient, right? So these are actually the specific breakdown of everything that's in there, right? So now when you get these things from a third party or a compounded pharmacy, so oftentimes you can't be sure if these inactive ingredients are the ones that are being used, right? Hence making it, potentially, dangerous, right? So let's go over to... Let's go over to Retta, all right? So Retta's main ingredient is the peptide Retta itself. It's a synthetic molecule designed to mimic 3 natural hormones, GIP, GLP, and glucagon, making it a triple G agonist. In its injectable form, inactive ingredients include mannitol, sodium phosphate, sodium chloride, sodium bicarbonate, dissolved in sterile water for injection, functioning as a lipophilized powder, right? Retatrutide is a complex peptide with specific amino acid modifications, right? And long fatty acid chains to enhance its activity and duration. The mannitol is a sugar alcohol used as a bulking agent. So now this is a bit different, right? Because this obviously contains glucagon. So there are some differences with this versus the actual is bicarbonate water with benzoyl alcohol. Let me see. See if I can go back. It is the sodium bicarbonate. So I'll go back to that in 1 second. It's just another buffering agent, Darian. It's just another buffering agent. Mannitol is sugar alcohol used as bulking agent. The sodium phosphate, monobasic and dibasic, used as buffering agent to maintain pH. Sodium chloride is the salt we talked about. The other buffering was the sodium bicarbonate, and the still water sterile water is the solvent for the powder. So that's that. It targets gastric inhibitory polypeptide, right, which is the GIP, which I've been talking about for the last 30 minutes. The gastric inhibitory polypeptide, which again is the thing that prohibits you from storing that fat. Glucagon-like peptide and glucagon receptors. The triple action helps to regulate appetite, metabolism, and blood sugar, leading to weight loss and improved glucose control, right? All right, so we're going to dive a little bit deeper, and then we're going to get into the other peptides tonight. Retatrutide is a synthetic peptide that acts as a primary active ingredient in experimental weight loss and anti-diabetic medication currently in late-stage trials. As of 2026, it's not yet FDA approved, though that we do know all of that. And just to break it down a little bit further, retatrutide is a synthetic 39 amino acid peptide. It's a triple agonist that mimics 3 naturally occurring hormones. GLP-1, which again suppresses the appetite and slows gastric emptying, which is primarily your Ozempic and your Wegovy, right? So that Ozempic and Wegovy suppresses the appetite and slows gastric emptying. The GIP, like I just explained, enhances the insulin secretion and may aid in fat breakdown, right? We just said that. It enhances insulin secretion and aids in fat breakdown. All right? And GCG, this is the one that people are not, that's the acronym for glucagon, GCG. It increases energy expenditure and promotes the breakdown of stored fat. So GIP and GCG closely mimic the same thing, right? That's something different. I do some. My specialty is investigational drugs. So again, GCG and GIP are very closely related, right? Because one aids in fat breakdown, the other they both aid in fat breakdown, basically, right? The other one aids in breakdown of stored fat. So I guess that's the next level, because basically that's where you get into reducing visceral fat, right? So that glucagon helps to reduce the visceral fat even more, right? So hey, what up, RMZ? What up, RMZ? RMZ entered the chat. Appreciate you for stopping through, bro. I'm sorry that your 49ers then took an L like y'all gave us through last week. So so you done join the vacation gang. We all going fishing. We all going fishing, right? So the chemical structure, right? So the chemical structure, the retatrutide peptide is modified with a 20 carbon fatty acid side chain, right? C20 di acid. The modification allows the molecule to bind to the albumin in the blood, significantly extending its half-life to approximately 6 days and enabling once weekly dosing. Now, you guys do remember we actually talked about that when I was going over my blood work, right? That word, that albumin, right, in the blood, the albumin. So this actually comes into play, right there. So yeah. So hopefully you guys got the Zepbound Retatrutide definitions. We'll go over the definition down pat. So if you do decide to stack, it won't be like stacks, because that's what you don't want to do. That actually, just doesn't make any sense. I would say talk to your doctor and then actually be honest, let them know what's going on, and they probably would suggest that you titrate up. Especially if you're on a middle dose and then microdosing another stack on the actual FDA approved or safe medication to get desired or said effect or result, right? Versus, you actually, going, gray marketing, utilizing, the peptide. And again, if you are going to do it, just like I said, try to avoid those cautions we talked about, bad molecules, bad protocols, and that, bad, communication, not speaking, with the doctor, right? Because you definitely want to speak with your doctor with all of these things, right? So these peptides are definitely still the top peptides that are FDA approved, right? The semaglutide, the tirzepatide, the liraglutide, the tesamorelin, and the sermorelin, right? These are all FDA approved. I didn't talk about the liraglutide. That's Saxenda. That's old school. So I didn't get into it, but that's pretty much just another GLP-1 agonist. Just like the semaglutide. Semaglutide is just much improved, right? The tirzepatide was the dual agonist, but tesamorelin and sermorelin are a bit different. So tesamorelin is an FDA-approved growth hormone releasing hormone, GHRH, analog used specifically to reduce excess abdominal visceral fat in HIV patients, right? So if you go on to Peptide Buddy or either like the King Peptide, I believe that's what his name. They actually give each one of them grades. They go from S all the way down to like a F, right? S meaning superior. So the only superior ones right now that they give, even non-FDA approved. Man, I miss my Sermorelin. Yep, Sermorelin is the next one I'm about to talk about. But basically, that those particular peptides that they talk about are that are superior are the ones we know about, right? It's the Reta, it's the TERS, you know what I mean? I think Tessa came in like at the A, which was right underneath, right? And then Sermorelin was actually at A2, not superior, but A, because Sermorelin was actually pulled because of the potential for cancer growth, and some of that. And since I didn't, go over it, but an FDA-approved GHRH analog used to diagnose and treat growth hormone deficiency is the Sermorelin that Charles mentioned in the comments. That's another one. So then you have the other peptides that are they're not, these are not FDA approved, the ones that I'm about to talk about now, but I'm gonna give you the effects. I'm not gonna go way into it because again, I like to talk in layman's term because I think a lot of times if we get lost in the weeds and then we actually end up using things because we don't even understand it, right? I remember you said it made for some of the best sleep, RMZ. Um, BP 157. So let's start with that one, right? BP 157. So BP 157 is known for its tissue healing properties. It is extensively studied in animal models for recovery from muscle, tendon, ligament, and bone injuries, right? So the thing is, if you heard that, I mean, it sounds amazing, right? That sounds amazing. It sounds amazing that to actually take something that would actually allow you to recover, from muscle, tendon, ligament, and bone. Hey, Charlie, hey, if you having any issue sleeping, man, you titrate up to 12.5, you ain't gonna have a problem. Because that 12.5 actually gets you good and drowsy. So I guess Jen can attest to that, the 12.5 and then 15. But being on the 12.5 definitely allow you to get more sleep. Because I go to sleep instantly now. I used to have a problem sleeping, a lot. But yeah, I mean, it will definitely get you sleeping. So you titrate on up to that 12.5 if you got problems sleeping, because it's gonna knock you down. So BP 157, that's the one that I'm actually talking about right now. That, like I said, gives or it's supposed to give muscle, tendon, ligament, and bone help to heal muscle, tendon, and ligament and bone. The problem is it is heavily, heavily, heavily. Dang, I've had insomnia on every titration. Hey, I can imagine, because my like I said, I sleep a lot. I've been able to sleep more with this 12.5. I'm telling you, but I'm still actually really glad that I titrated up, because, like I said, that food noise, was actually, pretty, I could, it was definitely like, a lot, so I definitely felt, good with the titration, and I'm happy I did it. And I think I made the right choice, because after a month, I don't have any, kind of sign. And even my suppression is really good. So I think we're going to be on 12.5 for quite a while. So the next one, so again, BB 157 is kind of like promoted for tissue healing properties. The next one is CJC 1295, right? Which or ipamorelin, right? So the ipamorelin, often used in combination to synergize, stimulate the body's natural growth hormone release, potentially aiding muscle growth, fat loss, and recovery, right? So again, it's used in combination to synergistically stimulate the body's natural growth hormone, potentially aiding in muscle growth, fat loss, and recovery, right? So that's another one that's not FDA approved, but you do hear about it. But I'm pretty sure on Peptide Buddies, they gave it a C, just because they don't have enough actual real world data, because a lot of this stuff is only approved for testing on animals, right? So they've tested animals, but not humans. They haven't put enough in real trials. What's the difference between isomorelin, samorelin, and tesamorelin? So if we want to go back, right? So let's go back. So you said isa. So remember, the other one is ipamorelin. Ipamorelin is pretty much synergistically used to stimulate the body's natural growth hormone, potentially aiding in muscle growth, fat loss, and recovery. So the ISA it aids in potentially muscle growth, fat loss, and recovery, right? Natural growth hormone. The Tessa and samorelin are very closely related, because they are FDA approved, but the Tessa is the one that specifically reduces abdominal or visceral fat. Tessa pretty much reduces excessive abdominal or visceral fat, Darium. And the samorelin, right? That one is used to diagnose and treat growth hormone deficiency, right? So Tessa reduces abdominal fat. Samorelin it treats growth hormone deficiency. The ipamorelin is used to stimulate natural growth hormone, which releases potentially aiding hormone release, which potentially aids in muscle growth, fat loss, and recovery. So hopefully that answers your question, Darian. The copper peptides, which you see these little acronyms, GHQ, CU, is popular in skincare for the ability to promote wound healing, reduce inflammation, and support collagen production. So this is one that they said, I was watching a doctor the other night on this one, and he said that, for the individuals that it was in his clinic, yeah, lots of overlap. Lots of overlap, I think. Charles. But the copper peptide, they said that it worked really well. But again, the problem with these is they don't have enough money pumped into trials to get human subjects to study enough to release them on a national scale. And then some of them actually ended up in the subjects that they did have in these small trials causing things, and the benefit wasn't worth the reward, right? So that's why a lot of these can't reach the FDA approval, because the benefit isn't worth the reward when we have other things that are very helpful, right? So, and here's the big one, right? I'm going to get to this big one that a lot of people talk about. And this one here is this AOD 9604, right? AOD 9604. So this is a peptide fragment that specifically encourages fat breakdown without impacting blood sugar levels. This is one that you hear a lot of people stacking that are on tirzepatide. You know, you hear this AOD a lot because they feel like it is, you know, going to give what retatrutide might give with the additional synergy of that glucagon increasing that energy expenditure, right? So that is kind of like what the AOD also promotes. It's a fragment that encourages fat breakdown without impacting your blood sugar levels. So there are some skincare peptides, you know, that are considered like the top ones. The I guess it's arginine. That's one of those signal peptides that reduces the appearance of like those expression lines. Because, you know, some people get like those lines in the head, you know, like I'll get them if I do like this, right? But that's natural. But some people will be like, you know, have their head like, you know, without the eyebrow raised, and they got the lines here. So you got them kind of like, in my opinion, like the Botox would do for certain people. But that's what that arginine is, marketed to reduce the appearance of the expression lines. And then the one that like fixes the structure of the skin, and that's the matrixyl. It's matrixyl. Yeah, that's what we call it, matrixyl. That's a what is it? Palmitoyl pentapeptide 4. It's a peptide marketed for supporting the skin structure and reducing fine lines, right? So now let me just read this real quick. It's just a note. The regulatory status of peptides varies significantly. FDA-approved medications undergo rigorous testing for safety and efficacy for specific conditions. Other research peptides are not approved for human consumption and carry risk due to limited human data and potential contaminants. See, that's exactly what I just said in layman's terms, right? So yes, let's consult our physicians to make sure that the potential benefits are not, you know, dampened by, you know, harmful treatment, right? So those are pretty much like some of the main peptides, you know, that I wanted to just go over, you know, for you guys. They do have some that they list for men, some for women, you know, and the differences and all of that. Hold on. So for men, right? So if we want to talk about men, we just want to break down the men peptides primarily, because these ones that I'm talking about now are for muscle growth and body composition, right? Muscle growth and body composition, right? So the best peptides for men depend on the goals, right? It depends on what your goals are, right? So like muscle growth, right? So for muscle growth, you got the CJCs, you got the CJCs 1295, the ipamorelin we talked about, which is, you know, or the IGF LR3. You have the recovery ones, the BPC 157 I talked about, the TB 500. You got the fat loss ones, right? The fat loss ones are the tesamorelins, the MOTCs, or the ones for the libido, like the PT 141. Those ones are like the synthetic effects. The stacks used for synergistic effects. The BP 157 and the TB 500 are like kind of like those ones that use together for healing. And then the GH releasing peptide support overall physique changes. Always, you know, obviously, you know, requiring, you know, medical supervision, because again, these are not approved. I am not a proponent of utilizing these, but I still want to actually get the definitions out there so people, if they decide to use it, know what they're getting themselves into. So everything I named was for muscle growth and body composition. For injury, it's the BP 157, the TB 500. And for libido and sexual function, it's the PT 141, right? So sexual function, that's the one that a lot of guys with the low T, probably, also get into. What is it? Bremelanotide, which works on the melanocortin receptor to improve libido and sexual function. Stacking is definitely something that you want to be, like I said, careful of. So those are for the men. And for the women, we're equal opportunity on this side. We do both. For the women, you're going to see much of the same, but the difference is you'll see a little more of that AOD 9609. Hey, D's in chat. Hey, Life Shy, good to see you. Drop in, holler at us. So for the actual recovery and healing, you got the like I said, the BP 157, the TB 500. That's one and the same. But for fat loss and body comp, more women would more likely use the AOD 9604. And this is true because I actually seen some people who actually are content creators actually utilizing this. One girl, she's an actual nurse, and she stopped using it, but she did use it for stalls. She had gotten the stalls and started using that. So that is a thing. It's out here. So that's why, like I said, I didn't mind doing the live on this because people are using it. If you're in the chat, please make sure you like and subscribe, but especially like, so that way the algorithm knows that you like what you're hearing and that you want to hear more of it. But we're talking about the peps for women. These are not FDA approved. For anti-aging and wellness, you got the Sermorelin and the collagen peptides. And for skin, the ones that I talked about, the Arginine and the Matrixyl, the copper peptides. Now, there are some important considerations to talk about. When you buy these peptides online, it's not for human consumption. There are multiple disclaimers. Absolutely. Please do not buy these peptides without actually talking to a doctor and a trusted, source. I'm not a proponent of any of them. I'm just actually simply educating on what they are because I would like people to actually pay attention, read before they actually purchase or consider stacking. That's what this conversation is about. Key considerations are hormonal balance, right? Peptides can support hormonal pathways, beneficial during perimenopause, right? So the best choice depends on individual health goals from the weight loss to anti-aging, right? So those are some of the things. So I think I pretty much ran down, a good deal with the peptides. So hopefully I did a good job, for y'all just kind of breaking down what some of those things are. We'll jump into some of the new stuff that's coming out that's not out yet before we end our live tonight. So let's jump over to some of that stuff that Darian requested. So let's talk about Zepbound. What is Zepbound, right? Appreciate that, Charles. Appreciate that. Zepbound is an investigational once-weekly injection, adult agonist for glucagon and GLP-1 receptors developed by Boehringer and Zealand Pharma for treating obesity, meta dysfunction associated with hepatitis, which is MASH. That's MASH. So I'm reading the whole. It's actually MASH. We're talking about liver, right? So, and related conditions aiming for greater weight loss and liver benefits than single receptor drugs by activating both pathways. Early phase 2 trials showed significant weight loss up to 18.7% and improvement in liver fat, leading to large phase 3 studies or synchronized for obesity and further research in MASH. Right. So let's dive deeper. It works through dual agonism, right? So it activates both glucagon-like peptides and glucagon receptors, which are key metabolisms. So it's just simply glucagon and survodutide, right? Survodutide, that's what we're talking about. It's literally just the glucagon and the GLP-1, right? So it's just the two, right? Lacking GIP. GIP is removed, and you're going kind of heavier on the glucagon and the GLP-1. So the synergistic effects are appetite suppression and glycemic control. While glucagon helps to reduce liver fat, it increases energy expenditure and improves liver inflammation, right? So MASH is fatty liver disease. That's what MASH is, in layman's term. So the effectiveness. Let's talk about effectiveness. So weight loss up to 18.7% mean weight reduction in people with overweight obesity after 46 weeks. So you pretty much dropping almost 19% of your weight after 46 weeks, right? That's pretty good. That's pretty good. For context, and again, these are averages. So a lot of times you'll actually drop more because in 45 weeks, I was able to drop 28% of my weight on a drug that says it promotes 21. So I lost 28% of my weight in 45 weeks. So this may be a drug that some people could actually lose the same thing because, again, these are averages. Now, in real world data that we're hearing this thing about real world. People are trying to separate the data points from those that's Novo. Is it? I believe. I'm not sure of the maker. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure of the maker right now, but I think it is. I actually think it is. No. That's Boehringer. That's Boehringer. Boehringer and Zealand Pharma. Boehringer is developed by Boehringer and Zealand Pharma. Jen. So this has demonstrated anti-fibrotic and anti-inflammatory effects in MASH patients. So again, what I was saying is it actually you actually could lose more because these are generally just averages. With these being just averages, you could lose quite a bit more than what it actually says. But the real world data that people are pushing for that are not simulated by the actual companies that are actually putting out these medications, they're saying they're a lower percentage than what they're actually pushing out there. I'm kind of in the middle because I feel like there's also a lot higher. Because the average is just that. It's in the middle, right? So the actual dosing is once weekly. Common side effects are the same as the other GLP-1s. And it's in phase 3 with potential release in 27 or 28, right? So let's move on to the next one. So let's go CagriSema, right? Let's go CagriSema. So this is cagrilintide and semaglutide, right? So what is it? It's a once weekly injectable by Novo. So this is by Novo, Jen, which a lot of people might actually know about this since it actually is by Novo. Some people might be familiar. Combining an amylin analog, cagrilintide, with GLP-1 agonist semaglutide for significant weight loss in adults with obesity. I think Dave on the pin, he's very excited about this one. For significant weight loss in adults with obesity, demonstrating high efficacy in trials around 20 to 23% body weight loss and improving metabolic health. It works by targeting multiple appetite pathways, delaying stomach empty and increasing fullness, with common side effects being gastrointestinal issues like nausea and diarrhea. And Novo has submitted it for FDA approval as of 2025. Right? Go a little deeper. What is it? Combination therapy. It is a fixed dose of amylin analog, which is cagrilintide, and semaglutide. The mechanism is it targets different hormones to regulate appetite and blood sugar, leading to reduced food intake and increased fullness, which is administered once weekly. So what is the metabolic benefit? It shows promise for improving blood sugar, A1C, and cardiovascular health markers. So this is another one that, and this is the Redefine trials that it went through. It's an advanced phase 3 trials. Redefine trials are the trials that it's actually under. It's not yet available, but it should be in late 2026. So this one will probably beat retatrutide. It'll probably be out in the winter. Retatrutide, or in the fall, retatrutide will probably be out of winter 27, which is probably the beginning. And percentages is boasting around 23% body weight loss. So just slightly, possibly above tirzepatide, possibly, because what this is a different analog, right? It's a different receptor. I'm sorry. Amylin analog is a different receptor, a different hormone. It's attacking where, and this is why I think Dave was excited about it, because some of the receptors that those that have diabetes aren't getting the actual weight loss percentages that some of us are. A lot of us are near 30% or near 40%. You got some people that lost near 30%. Some people lost 40%. Some people like Jen lost near 50%. So, These are, and that's anomaly. Like losing like 50% is like an anomaly. Like that's rare. You know, even 40%. 40% is like bordering on that side. 30% now, not so much, you know, but it's a very, very, very good outcome to get 30%. You know, because that's what they're looking for the average of retatrutide to be, and again, bariatric surgery. 30% and above is all bariatric. You know, that's rivaling surgery, right? So all of that 30, 40, 50 is what the dreams are, right? But the averages are 20%. And a lot of people that are diabetics are barely getting that 12 to 15%, you know, and it's not enough because some of them have morbid obesity. So people with morbid obesity are not getting enough weight loss when they actually able to get, you know, that 15%. A lot of them need that 30%, you know, that 30 to 35%, you know. So that is why these other combinations are exciting, you know, to those people, you know. So I'm hopeful that, you know, they'll actually be able to come out with some of these things and help people to get to that weight loss goal. And I want to add, I did a short not too long ago on that an obesity doctor did, talking about ideal weight, talking about, you know, the actual BMI that we probably should go after. And to segue into just something I'm hearing on other, you know, lives and things of that nature. The thing is, ideal body weight is not, and I'm wholeheartedly agree with him when he said this. If you've been in a larger body pretty much all your life, right? You know, since adolescence or since a teenager, your ideal body weight is not on the chart. It's not on the chart because you've always been larger. And like he said, and this is an obesity surgeon. This man been an obesity specialist for probably 30 years, you know, and he has a synergistic approach to the whole thing. And he said the ideal body weight for us who have been clinically obese or obese for a long time don't have the structures that the charts actually look for, right? Because if we look at the charts, it's all based on the basic anatomy, you know, of what that human skeleton and muscle mass and all of the things that make up is. Now, we're not aliens. It's just that those people that have been in a larger body for so long, structures have adapted because you've been in a larger body through adolescence a lot of times and early in your teenage life. So your body has adapted a bit to that, meaning you have larger bone structure, organs that have actually probably enlarged due to some of these things. So your ideal body weight is not that of what the BMI shows or on the scale at 24.9%, like most in that healthy range, right? Your BMI is probably more in line with that 27 to as far as maybe 32%, right? Now the 32% is probably more muscular or what have you, but I will agree, like he said, with the 27. And I've been saying that because another prominent doctor said that too. If you kind of get to that 27%, again, as a person coming from out of clinical obesity, right, you've probably won. You know what I mean? Because that is ideal. So for me to get to that, that means I'll have to be about 200 pounds. So I would have to lose, or to be very, very specific, I would need to weigh 198 pounds to be just below 27%, which would put me at 26.9, right? So for me to weigh 198 pounds, I would have to lose about 30 pounds. And I'm okay with that. I think I could lose 30 pounds. I could lose 30 pounds and be fine. Now, if I go with the BMI chart, I would have to be about 183 pounds, you know, 180, you know, so losing more closer to like 50 pounds, right? To be like that 180, 177 to 183 range, right? Which is absolutely normal for a 6-foot male like myself. But I think I would be uncomfortable because I don't think it would, like he said, you wouldn't look so good because you actually are, you know, going somewhere that your structure isn't built for, right? So while you want to get as close to healthy as possible, you don't want to overshoot that, right? Because our healthy and the healthy on the traditional range may be different. So I just thought it was interesting listening to a bariatric surgeon that does it all the time, 30 years. And it made more sense because he was speaking to us specifically and not the masses, right? Breaking it down for what's ideal, you know? So his thing is, I shouldn't be shooting for ideal of 183 pounds. That just doesn't make sense for me and my body. But if I'm shooting for 200, great, because I'll still look, well proportioned, and decrease, body fat even more, because that was the other conversation. I also went into body fat percentage for male and female, and it being what it should actually be, because you had people saying that the actual body fat percentage, men should go for 10%. Every man should go for 10%. You know what I mean? Like that might be the holy grail for a lot of athletes, that 8 to 10%. But for the average man, or even someone that's fit, it's about 16 to 22% body fat. 16 to 22%, right? That's for somebody that's really fit. And for the average man, just the average old ordinary man, 25% was acceptable, right? 25% was acceptable. Right? Now, you don't want to be above that, because then so the range just for acceptability was 16 to 25%, right? For super fit people, probably that 8 to like 14, 15%. But for those that are in that fit to average, 16 to 25%, right? So right now today, my fat percentage is 30%. It's exactly 30%, right? When I started this journey, my fat percentage was 40%, right? So I've come down 10%, but it took me 92 pounds to do that, right? So I don't have another 92 pounds to lose. Like I just told you, I probably got about 30. However, it at these lower weights, it tends to accelerate a little bit faster. So, and again, and like I said, in essence, what I'm looking for is a 5% reduction. And I think I can get that with building muscle, right? Build the muscle, lose more fat. I can get to that 25%, and I'll be satisfied. Because the thing is, in the real world, the average male body fat percentage right now is actually 29%. You can Google it. It's 29%. So literally, I'm only a percent off of like every other, average male, not even, what we consider obese ones at 29%. I'm at 30%. So these are eye-opening things, and I think it helps the conversation to actually hear from a bariatric. And that's why I seek that kind of information out. Because people aren't saying this. We all like lumped into like one big bowl, and kind of like, I try to like define things so we can kind of be less in that messy middle, like Darium says, and more on the way to what makes sense for us individually, right? Or us, or the group that we belong to, right? So I've belonged to the obesity group for so long, and my main desire is just to join the overweight people, right? And not be in obesity, which at 228 pounds means that I'm just 9 pounds away from that. So if I lose 9 pounds, that puts me at just overweight, right? At 19 pounds, which, like I said, my ultimate goal is 200. But if I end up at 210 or 215, I ain't complaining. So, I mean, there's that. I mean, that's where we are, with that there. I think I got one more to go over, and then, I'll close out. Let's see, where was I going now? I was going to... I think it was the orforglipron, or one of the newer ones that was coming out, that I was saying I was going to talk about orals. I'm going to talk about orals real quick, and then we'll conclude. So with the orals, I think that they was getting kind of like an unfair. Well, at least there's some people that's talking about them getting a unfair look. Now, me personally, I'm not gonna. I don't see myself going oral, because one, I mean, I do take like a blood pressure pill daily, that I'm in a habit of taking, but I don't think I would enjoy taking a weight loss pill every single day. And what I'm hearing is that the actual weight loss on them is more than what people are giving it credit for, because of the way that they're constituted, right? So I'll actually read a little bit on it, so that way people can understand, how it's formulated. So orforglipron is an investigational once daily oral small molecule GLP-1 receptor agonist from Eli Lilly. showing promise for type 2 diabetes and weight management by mimicking GLP-1, offering simpler dosing without food, water restriction, and demonstrating significant A1C reduction and substantial weight loss in trials through common GI side effects. Side effects need careful management. It's small molecule, right? So unlike GLP-1 injectables, like Ozempic and Mounjaro, it's a non-peptide that's easy to take as a pill without strict fasting or water requirements, potentially improving adherence. So what they think is that we'll adhere more to it because it's easier. Now, in my thinking, I don't feel that way. I feel like taking something daily wouldn't be as easy for adherence. Now again, I could be, I could be hypocritical there because, again, like I said, I do take a blood pressure pill every single day, right? So, and I'm very adherent, right? So I don't know, but I just think in my mind, I would much, rather just take the once a week injection. So uses, type 2 diabetes, it significantly lowers A1C, causes substantial weight loss in people with obesity or overweight, even without diabetes, with some trials showing up to 12% body weight reduction. Also being studied for obstructive sleep apnea, hypertension, and kidney issues related to obesity. The convenient oral dosing is a significant advantage over injectables, so they say. Strong results, shows comparable, even superior effects to some current treatments in trial. And it had all of the same side effects. But what I was actually talking about is, how it's made, right? So let's go back to that because we're talking about a small molecule. So small molecules are compact, low molecular weight organic compounds, typically under 900 Daltons, essentially in biology and medicine acting as natural substances like sugar and lipids, or drugs like aspirin or ibuprofen that easily cross cell membranes to influence cellular processes by interacting with specific targets like enzymes or receptors, making them crucial for treating many diseases. So it's small enough to easily pass through cell membranes. Composition is usually organic and made from common atoms, CHONP. Those are the specific atoms. And the structure is defined often with simple or ring-like chemical structures and identical copies. Stability, generally stable, allowing for oral administration as pills. And a function can be agonist, antagonist, inhibitor, or modulators for protein receptors or neurotic acids. So the examples of drugs are aspirin, Benadryl, Tylenol, ibuprofen. The natural metabolites are sugar, lipids, amino acids, hormones, second massagers like celiac APM. So the importance is most traditional drugs are small molecules, effective against many diseases, and it's used in chemical biology to understand cell functions by probing targets like enzymes and receptors. The cellular role involved in cell signaling, metabolism, and other fundamental biological pathways. So, there you have it. The orforglipron being a small molecule. So, if that makes sense to you, it might be something that you might be interested in. Now, the other one was the Wegovy pill. I put that on my page because that is available now in pharmacies. So, and it's supposed to be cheaper. But the actual cash price is $1,600. Just to put that out there for y'all. It's $1,600 cash price without insurance. But obviously you would get a prescription. So the Wegovy pill is a daily oral medication for weight loss approved as an alternative to injection that works reducing appetite, food cravings, alongside diet and exercise. So literally the same thing that we just went over. But this one actually dives into absorption, right? So which we call snack. Snack is the absorption enhancer. So the pill contains this snack, which is salcaprosate sodium. I think it's called salcaprosate sodium to protect the drug from stomach acid and helps it get absorbed into the bloodstream, allowing for oral delivery. That's the thing. That's the thing everybody wanted to know, with this, right? The active ingredient, which we know is semaglutide, mimics the hormones that signals fullness to the brain, helps you eat less. But the absorption enhancer, that is the difference here. There's an absorption enhancer. So that actually it protects the drug from stomach acid, right? And it helps it to get absorbed into the bloodstream, allowing for oral delivery. That's really the thing that you know people kind of didn't understand, but that's what's being used, right? So to give you a little bit more on that, the oral enhancer, it's a small molecule used in drug formulations to help poorly absorbed drugs like peptides, right, get into the bloodstream by increasing intestinal permeability, right? It's sodium salt of saccharomyces acting as a delivery agent, protecting the drug from breakdown, and has achieved generally recognized as safe status for use within certain medicines, notably enabling the first oral semaglutide. So I do have some thoughts about that though, right? Let's get through the functions and then we'll kind of wrap everything up with this. So the function is intestinal permeation enhancer, protecting drugs from degradation and aiding absorption. The chemical, which is sodium amino octanate, formulated through a whole bunch of molecular stuff we won't get into. It's either going to be it's soluble in water, and it's used with macromolecules like insulin or heparin, and critically in oral semaglutide, which is Rybelsus, which has been out, right? So in essence, it's crucial ingredient that allows large, difficult to absorb medicine to be taken as pills rather than injections by temporarily opening pathways in the gut line. So my thing with that is if we already got delayed, we already have delayed gastric emptying, and now this here is also going to kind of cause this to not be to prevent this from degradation and aiding in absorption. You know, would this not be left longer to the point where it causes those gastro issues that Wegovy and Ozempic cause, like those heavy stomach gastro issues, with it being primarily the GLP. So I guess it remains to be seen. That'll be a thing. So hopefully I broke down these peptides and everything for you guys tonight, and kind of like dug in a little bit to where people actually get to learn about why stacking might not be something that you definitely want to be doing. I'm gonna get into the chat and look at the comments before we conclude. I wanted to just see what everybody was in here saying. But yeah, I at least I feel like with the orals, it's going to be very interesting, because those are probably going to be the thing of the year, of just seeing how people turn out, with using those things. There's one other thing I wanted to say too. When it comes to GLP-1s, because there's so much like bickering back and forth, right, about, should you use them? Is it the end all be all? No, nothing's the end all be all, right? Because GLP-1s is part of a bigger bag of treatment, right? So us people that are overweight and obese, which are 75% of the nation now, so almost 8 out of 10 people, there's only 2 healthy people in a room of 10, most likely, right? I'm sure you will see folks picking up Wegovy pill at the pharmacy soon. Too late, Darren. They already picking it up. So, yep, they're already picking it up, Darren. Already. But anyway, no, what I was saying was basically I feel like there's no one size fits all, right? So I think that the argument is null and void when we want to talk about our GLP-1s, the end all be all. Is it the king of everything? No, it's not. It's not of when we talk about weight loss, and dieting and things of that nature, right? Yes, I love the fact that they have so many options too. I think that like the obesity, the bariatric surgeon, that I was listening to said, it's one big tool, right? It's a major tool. GLP-1s are a major tool for people whose biology did not do well with the fasting and the keto and the this and the that and the that and the that and the that. It's the thing that actually finally worked for them. So you're right to tout it for you, because it worked for you, right? Will it work exactly the same way for everybody? No, it won't, right? But it works well for so many people that I think it deserves the attention and the accolades that it does receive, right? But it is a part of a bigger picture, which is lifestyle, which is possibly surgery if needed, which is also, the treatment, right? You need to use all three. You need the treatment, you need the surgery if needed, and lifestyle. But understand that lifestyle is not, it doesn't work alone, right? For some people need the others, because if lifestyle alone, would work for everybody, then we wouldn't need the treatments. But clearly we need the treatments, we need the surgery, we need it all. Because when you're in a war, right? Because there's a war on obesity because it's a disease. Obesity is a disease. So since it's a disease, you need everything. So to say one thing is this, one thing is that, no, we need it all. You need all of the tools, you need all of the weapons, right? So I say, forget arguing about which one is better or greater or this or that. I understand just for conversation's sake. But if you want to get to the real meat and potatoes, to the core of it, you need all of it. You need lifestyle, you need treatment, you need surgery. Because all of those things are what's needed to actually get us out of where we are. Now, if you want to make the argument of, well, it's not biology, it's not, it's not, in the past, we weighed less. This world ain't what it was in the past, right? We eat different foods, we have different chemicals. We've come so far with technology that we all breathe in things that we never took in before, right? This conversation could go infinity, infinitely. We could talk about, the different gases and the things that we, chemicals that we breathe in that they didn't breathe in the 50s, in the 60s, and before they actually had so many vehicles on the road. All of the pollution, all the things when you think that you're taking out a natural springs fish and the things that you're fishing for and stuff like that was more natural. You had more natural things that back then than you do now. And all of these chemicals have affected our body in a way that they haven't before. So while it might not be natural biology that the reason why you're overweight or whatever it is, it's definitely biology. Might not be naturally occurring from a previous family member, but it's definitely your biology. It's something that's affecting you and not allowing you to have the effect. You know what I'm saying? That we might not have had at a time before. This world is very different. So this is why it's history is very important, but it's also important to I guess not compare to the point where, it's a good conversation, but understand that the world we live in now is very different than the world we lived in then. We have much more, better scientific means of probably providing and taking care of ourselves. So utilize the tools, but still understand that we're here, right? So I don't think it's super beneficial to bicker over the reasons, why, or either, what is better than the other, because I feel like we need everything. We need everything. We need everything. We need everything, and we need everybody, because we're in a war against obesity. Period. Point blank. Period. So I don't care if it's a GLP-1, if it's a fasting, if it's lifestyle. You got to do whatever works for you. You got to do whatever works for you. And clearly, lifestyle alone ain't working for the masses. It works for some people, but it don't work for the masses. It does not. The proof is in the pudding. You don't need to see nothing else. 75% of us are overweight or obese. Period. So lifestyle don't work for everybody. And that might be just the fact that they don't have the motivation or willpower to actually do the lifestyle. So that's a thing. That means it's a thing. If you don't have the willpower or whatever it is that would drive you to do it, then it's no good. So you got to use other tools. So let's spend more time just talking about the tools we have, how to use them appropriately, and to stay safe. Because realistically, the war ain't with us in the community and who's utilizing it. It's everybody else that pretty much pointing the finger at you for using it. So, and saying you're taking the easy way out when we know we're not. We know we're not. So I'm with everything. I'm with all the smoke, and I'm with all of the, whatever it is, it is that people, want to say about, these treatments, because I'll stand up for them. I'll stand up for them because this is, to me, something that was needed and, honestly, heaven sent for me, because I tried all of this stuff. Working out, trainers, lifestyle, did all of that. But at some point, you have a need, and you got to, exercise, what that need is. So there's that. That's my little tangent on us. Arguing about what's better. It doesn't matter at this point. What's better is that we use everything we possibly can to get to a weight that's going to prolong our life. And not to mention age. Age is a factor. You know what I'm saying? Somebody 20 can't pretty much. Somebody 20 and somebody 50. Have different issues. Somebody 30 and somebody 60 is just different issues, man. You don't have the same body as somebody that's that old. You really don't. You don't have the same thing. Now, when you get 50, we're going to see. You know what I'm saying? Like, where you at? Because your body's going to go through things that it hasn't yet. So the perspective of a young person, you know what I mean, is always going to be different than an experienced person because you went through things that cause your body to be a certain way. And it's okay. It's actually okay. So let's just, champion one another and have community, you know what I mean, and support one another instead of arguing about the trivial things. I'd rather get on here and try to save some of our people from stacking, you know what I mean, and utilizing things that may be unsafe rather than arguing back and forth about the safe choices. I think one makes more sense. Let's talk about safety and getting people to stop stacking and doing things that might be harmful for them when they actually just found different treatments that actually are approved that might work for them safely if they're just open and honest. Let's be open and honest. Let's never lie to our caretakers or physicians because people can't help you if they don't know the truth. You know what I mean? So there's that. Let me look at the chat real quick before we get out of here and see what y'all been talking about because I'm sure I missed a lot. I'm sure I missed a ton. So let me go back. I got to go way back. All right, so we had, I got to get all the way back. Y'all been going off in here. All right, so we got, okay, so Darian was saying, how's the weekend been? Okay, so we saw all of that. I saw all of that. I spoke to that. Let me see if I got to any questions at all. I won't read everything. Appreciate that, Darren. The congrats on the 12.5. Jen said, yes, Jesus is a great teacher. Appreciate that, Jen. Sodium chloride is salt. Okay, I answered that. Salt and still water, is that with the benzyl alcohol? Do you do any compounding, Jen? That's something different. I do some. My specialty is investigational drugs. Nice, Jen. RMZ came in. Yeah, I don't think I missed no questions. There were no questions. There's a bunch of people saying hello. A warning from Charles. Darren said, I'm loving the folks who are living with obesity and overweight, have so many new options. Access matters. Yes, for sure. We have stressful lives. We don't sleep. We have zero work-life balance. We don't take vacations. We have food deserts. We have an obstinogenic environment for sure. Yes, I agree. Right times have changed. Yeah, so I went through the chat. So I didn't think I missed much. So yeah, so I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I think we had a pretty good live here. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. I mean, hopefully we actually had some good substantive conversation, and you guys enjoyed what I actually brought tonight. I'll be back here next Sunday, probably 7:30, same time, most likely. And hopefully I'll have the technical difficulties. When I first got on, I was listening to feedback, so I had to hang up and then come over to this side to actually do it. So I actually make sure I put my description back in the description before I post once I hang up here. But thank you for everybody for thank you everyone for coming in, spending some time with me and Obesity Warriors tonight. Obesity Warriors stand up. We in this together. And there we go. So later. Good night. Thank y'all for coming through.